Okay.
Good, we're gonna get this done right. Right, to the Rockcastle County Board of Education. This is our regular board meeting, the first meeting of the year. So, year for some of us, this is still the same school year, but we do have a few things that we have to get out of the way first. First thing we do is call the meeting to order. The next thing on our agenda is a moment of silent prayer, if you'll join us. Item 1B is our roll call. Let the minutes note that all members are present either here or via Zoom, and we do have a new board member. He was sworn in prior to the meeting, Mr. Matt Cox. We'd like to welcome you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to serving with you. And I know very little about you, so I'm anxious to get to know you as an individual. So welcome and thank you for volunteering your time. Item 1C is the reading of our board team commitments, and since he's the new guy, guess who gets stuck reading them?
All right, we'll see how this goes. To improve our effectiveness, the board team for Rockcastle County Schools commits to review processes and experiences to identify and direct improvements, continuously define and work toward long-term goals which serve all students of the district, make each decision based on facts and the best for all students, listen to each other and speak freely, work together, support each other, and not surprise one another, discuss board deliberations to point a mutually agreeable resolution based on factual information, support the majority's decision, projecting board unity toward shared goals for continuously improving district-wide student learning, operate without personal or political agendas, respect one another, agree to disagree respectfully, delegate implementation to superintendent and education team, and to respectfully remind each other of these commitments.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next thing on our agenda is the election of officers. We have to do this every January. We have to appoint a chair and a vice chair. Do we have any nominations?
Nominate you to remain as chair.
A second. Thank you. All right, and we need a vice chair. Anna?
And I nominate Anna.
I'll second Anna. Miss Angie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Matt, you okay with that? We need to make a motion to leave as is with those.
Motion.
I make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
The next thing is to approve the regular board meeting schedule. We currently meet the second Tuesday of every month here in this location at 6 o'clock. Is that a conflict for anybody?
Does that work okay?
Does that work for
coming
you?
in?
Okay. Miss Angie, how does that work for you?
It does great. It's good.
6 is good?
Yes.
I feel like I should be looking this way at it, but I think that we really should be. All right. So we need a motion to leave our meeting as is.
Motion.
And I need a second. All right. All in favor?
Yes.
The next thing on our list is to adopt the agenda. We had discussed a little bit prior to the meeting under operations and actions, which is an unusual request, but we will have to go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter for just a matter of a few minutes. So when we get to that part of the meeting, you all can excuse us maybe 5 minutes and we'll be right back out. Okay? But with that being said, are there any things that anyone thinks they need moved? No. Okay. With that being the case, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Okay,
I'll second.
second. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, now for the fun part of the night. Our school and community showcase. Item 3A, the Roundstone Elementary School. Mr. Bishop, there he is. Wonderful.
Thank you all for having us over here tonight. Before I have all kinds of good data that I get to share with you, but before we get to that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Allen. And we did a Christmas concert, and I think somebody come in and saw a preview of it, kind of right, a warm-up session. But we were going to bring some kids in, and I guess the snow days or the NTI days on Thursday and Friday, we just couldn't get all the kids to get here, and we had to have instrument players, and so it just didn't come together. So Miss Allen, I won't say Miss Allen took care of it, and I'll let her explain here.
Yeah, we held out as long as we could today, thinking, we might get a few more of those permission slips back saying they were ready to attend, and we had 9, and out of those 9, only one of them was an instrumentalist, and we thought, okay, plan B. So we gathered those students together in my classroom this afternoon and videoed the performance. So that's what you're going to see. They're going to be performing an ancient Burgundian carol called Patapan, and various instruments that we use in our classroom from time to time. And for a lot of these students, it was the first time they've gotten to play a lot of these instruments because they were put away all last year from COVID. We didn't get to have a Christmas concert last year because of COVID, but it was very, very good to be back performing again. And so I'll apologize for the video quality and the sound quality. We were kind of working on the fly with an iPad, but this is a mixed group of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and I'll just let them sing. 1, 2, 3, play. The next video is just them introducing themselves. Again, you probably won't be able to hear them because we're working with an iPad, but wanted to give you a chance to meet them. So I'll let Brandon.
And introducing themselves, our instrumental ensemble by instrument. On xylophone, we have on the telephone, playing bucket drums that were donated by Ace Hardware in Mount Vernon, we have on triangle, and our vocalists. Thank you for letting us share this with you today, and until next time.
So if you don't know how elementary works, we get to have some fun times with all that. And Miss Lakes, you saw the warm up kind of.
I did. I saw quite a bit of it, and it was a nice surprise when I come into the school. I didn't know that was going on, so it was awesome. It was refreshing to see kids doing things like that and parents getting to come and see that. And y'all have great security, even though I made it through the front. When I come in and I sit in the corner, she was like, she kind of stopped. Can I help you? Like, who's this person in here with our kids? So, but it was,
I didn't recognize
no, it's
Good.
okay.
No,
Phenomenal
that's what we
job.
want. That's wonderful.
Phenomenal job. It was awesome.
And I want to thank Miss Allen. She always does a great job with all of our music, anything that we put on any production. And actually, we've kind of switched it. It has always been kindergarten through fifth grade that has done the Christmas program. And just to keep our numbers down a little bit, we did third, fourth, and fifth grade. So we're going to do a spring concert with kindergarten, first, and second grade, putting on something in the spring. So
That's
we'll see how
awesome.
that goes. Hopefully, it's harder with the little ones, but we appreciate y'all letting us show you our kids. So I do have some data. I'm a numbers person, and I'll pass this out and just kind of let you look at some numbers here that we have. Obviously, you all know that we use the iReady diagnostic, and so I want to really talk about school success, what it is to have success at the elementary level or at any school level. And that's kind of like the introduction there. I have a little cover sheet there, and it says Roundstone Elementary is about student success and achievement. Success can look different for each student. Sometimes success is getting a good grade on a test or moving up a grade level in reading. Sometimes success is when a student reads aloud to his or her classmates or comes to school on time. So we know success is different for our kids. It can be like, I can give you, and I'm sure Mr. Hopkins can tell you, like sometimes success is just the kid not causing a disruption at 7 o'clock on the bus, right, Mr. Hopkins? And sometimes it takes weeks, but they eventually, with enough love and enough finger pointing sometimes, or mama calling, or whatever it is, they figure it out. It takes a long time for some, and some it's no problem, but that is a success for that kid. And I have some quotes later down in there that I'll talk about some of those things later. But we work on being successful each day. Our number one goal is to ensure the academic success for our students. So I'm not going to go through the next 4 stapled packets, but if you can just kind of look over this, like the very first one is our reading scores, and it has the winter scores on the left, which is nice and bright, and then the kind of the faded outside is the fall. And so it's comparing all of our kids in our school from the winter benchmark or the winter test that we just took right before we went home. Most of our kids took it right before we went home before Christmas break, and then comparing that to the fall. Well, if you look at the green, which is it's where we want all of our kids. We want them. It's called Tier 1 in here. We call our RTI Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. But really on this, the green is on grade level. Means that they are reading on grade level. And so if you look at this one, we went from 27% of our kids that started school on grade level to 38% on grade level. So we're almost to 2 out of every 5 kids on grade level. And some people might look at that and be like, gosh, that's not many. But we had 11% more increase. We had an 11% increase. So that's what we're looking at. If you look at the red, that would be kids that are 2 grade levels or more behind. We went from 24% down to 16%. So our kids are gaining, they're growing, and there's so much data in here. Now I didn't print off anything that had any students' names on it, but whenever I go into this, I can click on kindergarten and pull up every kindergartner, and it shows where they were at in the winter, where they were at in the fall compared to where they're at in the wintertime. So it gives us some really good data to figure out, if a kid's growing, what they're doing, and that's what the last 2 packets are in your packet there. It is the growth, diagnostic growth, and you can look at this and tell what grade levels are growing and how much they're growing, and kids should be about 50% away through the year. So according to this data, if you look at the reading one, it says that the progress to annual typical growth, we're at 44%. So our kids grew 44%. They should be maybe closer to 50%, but they're moving in the right direction. And you take into consideration where the kids started. all of the other things, whether it's the kids that have trouble on the bus or the kids that don't like school, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute, like, our kids are going in the right direction. And I really believe that it is so important for us to have our kids in school every day. And I appreciate that from you all and from Ms. Ballinger and our office staff here at the district level, that, they and us at the school level, we work really hard to get kids in the building every day because it matters. And Miss Hurst is here. She's our interventionist, and I'll talk about her at the very end. But she was just talking about a kid and how if they're at school, it's unbelievable, but they miss a lot of school, and they have moved in from a different school district, and not that matters, but we have a lot of those students, and we want them here to have success. And like I said, sometimes that success is getting to school on time, and sometimes that success is being at grade level. And if it's a higher kid, we want them to be above the grade level, reading or math or whatever it may be.
Mr. Bishop,
Yes.
what is your attendance rate? What is it average right now?
I know a guy that knows that. No. I think our attendance is probably, I'm going to say it's at 93, 94%. And in years past, of course, I know since COVID, I've kind of not paid as much attention to that. And Railstone had the highest attendance for a few years, and we were like maybe 96 point whatever percent. And we took a lot of pride in that. Of course, that was lots of ice creams and lots of pizza parties and lots of things like that. But we were, so I'm going to say it's in the 90.
Last month you were 93.83.
93.83, so almost 94.
Yeah, month 3 you were 95.47. So you're right. Its average is probably about a 94, somewhere around in there.
So,
which is,
and that's so important. And if there's any parents that are listening, I hope that they understand that that's probably the most important thing, is just being at school. I mean, it's truly important. And so if you have time, if you get bored at home and you have time and you want to read through some data, you can look at this. And if you want to come down and look at individual students, we can do that too. But how do we ensure success for our students? Obviously, you got to have great teachers, and you got to have great support staff and great bus drivers and all of that. And I just wanted to read. I sent out a thing, honestly. What time? It was probably 1 o'clock or after. I sent out an email to our staff, and I was like, if you have any success stories, shoot me an email back. I said, I need to know in the next hour. My inbox is full right now, but I put a few of them on here. I put a few of those quotes on here. Like one teacher sent back and said 6 students scored 100% on all weekly tests. Another teacher said 5 students did their multiplication facts to 12 in 1 minute. And there were many more, like 30 seconds is the next thing. And I just ran out of room. I couldn't put them all the things on there. But I love the one, if you go down about 2/3, it said, and I know the student very well. I had a student that hated school at the beginning of the year, told us he didn't want to be in our stupid school. Now he comes to school each day with a smile on his face and hugs us, tells us he loves us. And to me, that is awesome that we have teachers, we have adults that, they bring those kids in, and yes, he is a little one. So, it's not like it's a 5th grader saying that. He's a little one that had never been to school, and he didn't like it in the beginning, but he likes it now. So maybe the next 11 years of his education will be, he'll love school. So, that's very important to us. Last thing, I know I'm taking up way too much time. I've seen tremendous growth with our special education students and our Tier 3 students, and those are the students that are struggling, whatever it may be. And there's lots of reasons that kids struggle, but they're in that Tier 3, the RTI. This is the reason I've seen this tremendous growth is we have 2 special education teachers, and you all allotted us a half of a teacher for the first half of the year, and that helped us out so much because it took a strain off the other 2 teachers. And now you all have allowed us to have a full-time teacher that actually starts on Monday. So we'll have 3 full-time special education teachers, which will help our special education students so much because they get that extra resource time, that pull out, plus the in-class time, and just that extra support. And that's exactly what those students need. And then you all also have given us the interventionist. And I don't know if anybody has ever said anything to you about the interventionists at their schools, but that is something that we desperately need to keep. And I know that it's a 2-year thing, and that maybe that money will be gone. So I'm putting it on the table now. We need to keep the interventionists.
Would you tell us exactly what they're doing in your school building?
I got the first. You want to step up here with me?
I don't have anything for
She didn't know. She's here for a totally different reason, which in a little bit. But Miss Hurst, she's been a 5th grade teacher for years, and she applied and she got the interventionist job at Roundstone. And listen, I'll let her tell her side of it. But what I've seen is she takes this data, she breaks it apart, she pulls the kids that are falling behind for whatever reason, if they're tier 2, tier 3. And she identifies those kids, and it's almost like a name them and claim them. Like if you know that kid, maybe they're just under the radar, and they're just a grade level behind, but it allows them to be pulled out. They're not receiving special education services, and she can pull them out, and she can do small groups with them, and I'll let her tell her side of it. But it's unbelievable at the impact that she has had, and I'm sure that at the other schools as well, with this interventionist role. It's just that extra hand for a lot of kids that fall, like anything in the 10th percentile and down. We know that there's red flags that come up a lot of times for those. What about the kids that are in the 20th percentile that do just enough that to get by, but they're still struggling a little bit? And she can identify those, and then she can figure out where they're lacking, what they're missing, and pull them in. If me and you, maybe we're on different, maybe I'm a 2nd grader and you're a 3rd grader, but we're missing the same concept. We might be in that same group together, and she'll show us and teach us, and we'll learn it together, and then we'll both improve because of it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I have loved this position. I didn't know how much I would love it until I actually began to do it. And it is just working with kids who are at risk. And it's those kids who are not identified that not necessarily need to be identified. They're kids who are missing something, that there's been gaps with them. And so once they are identified here in our diagnostic data for our iReady, it gives me that's kind of our temperature taker to say, oh, something's up. This kid needs something. So then I take them into my room once that's established, and we say, well, what specifically do you need? And we start doing more diagnostic testing to kind of see, is it phonemic awareness that they're missing? Is it phonics that they've missed out on? Is there some skills that they just haven't mastered yet? And so I use about 3 different programs that I have there, kind of that in the in-house that we use and for reading, and then one program that we use there for math. And I've just seen kids, who come in and then, they are just growing. And I've even told Mr. Bishop, there's some that have even grown up to the part where they would be back in the tier 2, but I want to keep them. It's like I've got to keep them because I see that growth that they're making, and I see that program that the things that we're using, the instructional program that I'm using, that's really starting to make some difference. And so, being that I've only had them since August, I really want to keep them for a little bit longer. And so it has afforded me. I do, at Roundstone there is some advantages for a small school because I do have the ability to pull those kids in. There's not so many like some of maybe Mount Vernon and some of those have that there's such a big number that I can do that, and I even do that for reading and for math. And I've just seen a tremendous growth in kids. I was so excited when, our diagnostic data came back and we saw those kids growing. They were so excited. There were students that I had that grew, their stretch growth. They met their stretch growth, which is just unheard of already. Not at the end of the year they met it, but they met it already. And just seeing kids who have just grown tremendously. So I appreciate the opportunity for this. I do think it's a very needed position, not that I'm here just advocating for my job, but because I was a classroom teacher for 21 years and I loved being a classroom teacher, but I love being an interventionist also. But it's such a needed thing, especially right now amidst, all the gaps that we have. And so I don't know what else.
Oh, that's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw her out there. And not just for interventionists, but also any adult, like our classified staff, our instructional assistants are so important that, they give they're that extra person that will do small group work with them, and I mean, and I know you all know, and I'm not trying to tell you something that you don't know, but, I'm just advocating for all of our staff members that we need. That it's easy to probably to look at the numbers and say, oh, you need 2 second grade teachers, you need 2 third grade teachers, here's your numbers, or even special education students. It's easy to look at those numbers, but our support staff, that's so important at all schools, and I just wanted to let you all know, that I'm an advocate for all of that, for our instructional assistants as well. And, and it goes down to the bus drivers, to the janitors and the cooks. They all are so important. And of course, at Roundstone, we have just an awesome small little community there, and everybody loves the kids. And one last story, I almost forgot it. This is my favorite story of all the data. We had a 5th grade student that she dropped a little bit in her math scores, and she went from very high up in the 80th percentile down into like the 60th percentile. And so I'm looking, I'm like, why did she drop? And there's the 4 categories in math. Well, her geometry scores were really low. Like she was mid 5th grade, mid 5th grade, mid 5th grade, and the geometry score was like a mid 2nd grade. And I couldn't figure out. I was like, what happened here? Well, she's missing one little, because it was some new questioning in geometry, because they were halfway through the year. It was a one concept that she was just totally didn't know, and everything that she answered, she must have answered wrong, and it just kicked her out and made it look like that she didn't know. So like we can take this data and we can break it down and say, well, what are they missing? What concept are they missing? So her classroom teacher can now go to her, maybe just pull her out or give her a geometry lesson over whatever she didn't understand, and how much is that going to help her for in the spring when she takes this diagnostic. So, just little things like that. And she's by no means, she's not even, nowhere near being in with Miss Hurst, but we can even the classroom teachers can look at this data and figure out what kids are missing and where they're at. So, it's a combination of a bunch of stuff, but we really do it for academic success. We want our kids to be successful, and sometimes that's, like I said, that success is not having to drag them down to the classroom because they're crying. And it's a good feeling when kids are at the end of the day and you're taking them to the bus, you're dragging them to the bus because they want to stay at school. So, that's the kind of dragging we want to do. We have to drag them home. But there's all kinds of, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just curious, you were talking about how you can go through and look at the data and it tells you what concepts that they are not grasping or whatever. Is that something that, which I know this would be a huge chore to undertake, is that something you share with parents? I mean, as a parent myself with a smaller child, I would kind of like to know those things that maybe my child is not.
We can print the reports, and it shows, those bands and their scores in it, and we can, you can look and see if they've had that growth in, if it's geometry or whatever it is, the different concepts, and in the reading, if they're lacking in something, and
Is that the norm that we send that information out?
I want to think that the middle school did.
Because
I don't know if I've gotten it at the high school, but I want to think.
I mean, I got the data sheet, but it didn't recognize on its.
That's a separate report that can be ran. It's one that you have to run individually for each student, but that is definitely something that is very easily accessible at the school level.
Okay. I was just curious. You're not my child's principal, but I figured since you're in the hot seat, we'd ask you that question.
But yeah, you can get all of that data, and there's lots of tabs and lots of buttons to click, and you have to kind of play. Even like this information, I use it quite a bit, but I still have to play and figure out and remember where certain things are. But there's lots of information there. Miss Willis probably knows it. She does better than I do even. So it's just we use that data, and we use our resources, and our teachers and our staff is our resources. And we just want our kids to be successful.
How many classroom teachers do you have at Roundstone?
We have 2 at each grade level. Then we have 3 special ed teachers and 3 specials teachers. So 18, 19 certified.
How many years have you been a principal down there?
This is my 7th year.
7th year.
Yeah, I don't know where time has went. So fast. Any
I
questions?
just wanted to say, I know you said at the beginning that you're a numbers guy, but I would have to say you also have a big heart, because when we couldn't walk down the hallway and like every kid was wanting to come and give you a hug, and you know, we want our kids to be successful, but it starts with how we make them feel.
Right.
So I commend you for
Well,
that.
and I probably make my teachers mad, because in the hallway, I'm hugging and high-fiving and fist bumping, and that probably disrupts the hallway, walking down the hallway sometimes, but I
But
can't.
to add in on that, those kids will remember that Mr. Beischower was the principal at Broadhead when I was just a little girl. And he was that man that always had something kind to say, love to give. And I still adore him to this day. It does impact them. So that's your excitement. I love it.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it, and I mean, that's our staff, I mean, it's 50 strong now, 51 maybe now, but, you know, it is the staff, and I don't wanna ever overlook anybody. I mean, our classified staff is unbelievable, but, you know, our janitors and our cooks and our bus drivers, you know, like, you know, we have bus drivers that do the same thing, you know, as kids are getting off, they're giving them fist bumps, and that means a lot. It means a lot, because if the kid gets off the bus mad, where does it come to? It comes to the classroom. But if they get off and they're happy and they're excited, then, you know, their day is at least off on the right foot, so. I know I took up way too much time, and I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
you're good.
Oh, no, we
That's the
thank
best
you.
part, hearing
We-
that success.
All right, thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I always thought Mr. Bishop probably had the best job in the county. I always thought Roundstone was just a pleasant, I mean, that school reminds, you know, I was a small elementary school gal, went to Livingston, and it was a community. And, you know, it's amazing. I'm much older now. We're not gonna discuss my age, but those teachers I had at Livingston are now my friends. So, you know, it's just, kids don't forget that. So thank you very much for all that you all do down there. The next thing on our agenda is, recognize our National Board Certified Teacher renewals. Ms. Karen?
Sure, yeah. Okay, so we all know that the secret to student success is a strong, passionate teacher. So tonight we get the pleasure, and this really excites me as someone who's gone through this program, but tonight we get the pleasure of recognizing 3 teachers in Rockcastle County Schools that have gone through the renewal process to being a National Board Certified Teacher. These teachers had previously certified, but that certification period, you have to renew after a number of years to renew that certification. So I'm going to read you just a little snippet just for those of you that are not familiar with the program. But every student deserves to be taught by an accomplished teacher. National Board Certification was designed to develop, retain, and recognize accomplished teachers and to generate ongoing school improvement. It is the highest certification that a teacher may obtain. I'm going to read that again because that truly is a strong statement. It's the highest certification that a teacher may obtain, in addition to being the most respected one. So this is a tremendous professional development program that teachers go through. It is difficult. It is, in my experience, the most difficult program that I have ever gone through, and I'm sure that they will say the same. And when you achieve this, it really means something to you because you know that you have put in the time and the effort to really do something worthwhile. And the important part is that it impacts your students. Your growth really shows in your student achievement. And so these 3 ladies have renewed, and I was just so proud of them that I just wanted to take just a moment to celebrate them and to thank them, because it's a lot of effort and a lot of work, and I'm sure they have spent a lot of Saturdays when away from their family trying to achieve this certification and to renew this certification. And I just want to recognize their dedication to their profession and to their students and to Rockcastle County Schools. I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big enough deal that they get a little emblem by their email. They get to have that pin that says I'm a National Board Certified Teacher, And, you know, people should display that proudly because it is a really big deal. So, as Miss Angie calls your name, if you would come up and receive your certificate, and Miss Jamie, would you care to snap a picture for Miss Renee Parker?
I feel like we should clap.
Yeah, I did too.
Miss Stephanie Hurst. You're so impressive up there. And Miss Serenity Humble.
I will say you find out if you have achieved your recertification or your initial certification through an email. And when you click on that email, fireworks go off if you pass. Well, if you don't pass, there's no fireworks. And it is extremely stressful whether you should open that email or not open that email. And it's really intense. So thank goodness our three ladies they've got to experience the fireworks. We're really proud of all three of you. Thank you.
That once again just, well, that just tells us why we're here and why our kids are where they're at, you know, it's impressive. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ladies, very much. And we encourage more of our teachers to pursue this.
Oh, it is wonderful.
Yeah.
We're working and starting like a cohort, a national board certification cohort. So if there's anybody that's interested and you would like to know more about it, if there's anybody watching, any of our teachers, talk to one of these ladies. I'd be happy to talk to you myself. We have other national board certified teachers in the district. They're just not at the point of renewal. But we'd be happy to talk to anybody about it, and I highly recommend it. It really is impactful for your students.
Thank you so much. Item 3C is recognize the employees for the Western Kentucky relief efforts.
Yes, so Rockcastle County Schools participated in the Stuff the Bus initiative. That was a statewide initiative to help the families and the victims of the Western Kentucky tornadoes. So initially we started kind of small, and we got bigger and we got bigger and we got bigger, and I had to go to Mr. Hopkins and say, please don't be mad at me, but I volunteered us to do X, Y, and Z, and all these people just were so helpful and jumped right in and were so willing to give of their time and their effort, and just it really brought, I mean, it warmed my heart just to see how much our employees gave. And I just wanted to recognize and say thank you to the people that just volunteered their time. I will say our student council at our high school and our cheerleaders, they really coordinated the efforts at the high school level. They raised several $1,000s that we were able to donate directly back to Dawson Springs. And that money, it was, we used gift cards, purchased gift cards with that money. Those gift cards will go directly to the family resource centers in Dawson Springs and go directly to those families. They raised close to $3,000 total. So that was wonderful. And that's in addition to everything else that all of our other schools raised. So we took everything from toys to flashlights, backpacks full of supplies for all ages. We had water, we had batteries, just you name it, and we took it. But then we also partnered with KEDC, which is the organization that we're a part of, and we helped transport all of the materials and the goods and the donations from all over Kentucky. So these people that we're getting ready to recognize volunteered a day of their time, and we traveled. And we went to Western Kentucky as a group, and we took all of this, and we unloaded a whole lot of buses and did a lot of work, and it was very rewarding. I know it was rewarding for me just to see just the giving nature of our employees. So I just wanted to recognize them and say thank you. They didn't have to do any of this, and they did because, you know, they care about people and they care not only about our community, but our entire state. So I just wanted to say thank you. So not everybody, I don't think is able to be here tonight, but as I read your name, if you want to come up, Miss Angie can give you your certificate, or you want to? Okay, you go ahead and read them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Brett Noble. David Bryant, I didn't see David anywhere. Adam Pointer. Gary Pruitt. Dennis Rigsby. Trent Clark.
Trent is not here this evening.
James Pointer's not here. Ronnie McKinney. Cody Durham. Jason Cash. Mr. Ken Hawkins. Miss Jamie, would you? We'll make sure that these other individuals get their certificates also. Good looking bunch we got up there.
I had to be really careful that day because a lot of other districts were trying to steal our good employees. So I had to make sure they knew that nobody was for hire. They were all coming back home with us. But I do appreciate each of you. Thank you very much for what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
I just got one question.
Yes, sir.
Did Emily get to keep her dream truck?
She loved that picture you sent. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Appreciate you, all of you.
I'm gonna slip out.
Yes.
I've got a bum hand.
You're in our prayers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, I've gotta keep it up and.
Yeah.
keep a
Thank
little
you for
medicine.
coming.
Thank you all for the honor of getting the privilege to go to Western Kentucky and help out.
Well, we appreciate
That
you.
made my day. But I will say this, it made my day too, when I saw not only our Director of Transportation, but our county school superintendent go along with us and work right along beside of us and help us. Thank you, Ms. Carey,
Well, I appreciate
for allowing us to do this and for going and being a part of it with us. Appreciate you very much for that. That was rewarding for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know it. Listen, you know, when you get to recognize people for all of their hard work and I'm not sure if you want to call it patriotism or just being kind. You know, I think that we need to spend our time focusing on kindness now more than ever. So
I don't mean to interrupt you. I wish everybody had gotten to travel there that day and just to see the good in the world. It just renews your faith in people and the community, and it was really probably one of the highlights of probably my life was going there that day. It was just a really good day to see the giving spirit of people.
What is that quote that says something like, in this world where you can be anything,
choose to be kind.
choose to be kind.
The next thing on our agenda is our operations and actions, and this is the part of we are going to go into closed session for just a few minutes. We have a personnel thing that we need to discuss. It will only be probably about 5 minutes. So if you could, I need a motion to go into closed session.
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Just give us a few minutes. Thank you, Miss Angie.
Good, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Take care of this.
I tried to, you know, it doesn't work very well. Oh, with him?
Thank you, she can see all of this.
Hey, Brandon. He's on the phone.
I've joined that session. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And Amber does get into play. You know, the kids don't try, but you know, the kids wanna do well. They don't wanna not do well. So, I mean, there's some knuckleheads that, yeah, we're just talking about the diagnostic, you know, some but you can call that on, cause you can say, or you're gonna do it again. You're gonna do it again, you're gonna keep doing it till the accurate reflex, what you're. Yeah, I would do that.
I'm no snaps to that. So last time was they late in closed session, I thought they were, they took, they all my snaps free. You got so that. You carry it with you.
Your attendance percentage is 93.53.
Yeah, I mean, you got a nail on
I mean, I knew it's, and it's down a little bit.
Down a little bit, but it's down a little bit for everybody. Good night, we've had a rough year. You know, I don't know what we do with QRS, cause it's an exemption code.
Yeah.
And so like Thursday, Friday, of course, that was,
Yeah.
but those numbers are just 9 days, every month to month, and this is a.
You got no
Clear
freckles this time, but I
construction
do have
days.
chocolate.
This kinda brings back some bad memories.
Yeah,
That's the thought I had.
We were here 5 hours that night.
Well, listen, I'm gonna sneak out while they're back there.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, our agenda operations and actions. I need a motion to approve operations and actions. With that, we are approving for the minutes to note that for item A, we are going to waive our board policy to allow this certified employee to receive up to 8 weeks unpaid FMLA leave, that because they are within an 18 months of retirement. Okay, so as we approve that, that is part of what you are approving. So I need a motion to approve operations and actions, or let me ask first, does anyone have any other questions about anything in that category, operations and actions? I think it was all pretty routine. Okay, need a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second, all in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Angie. Item 5A, review and approve our year ending June 30th, 21 audit presented by, is it, okay, help, is it Shad? Okay, I didn't want to insult you anyway, so.
I'm almost 39, so usually it's Chad, and I've really gotten used to that by now. So what I always say is it always takes twice, and it's pretty much typical, but hey. All right, well, thanks for having me for your all's audit. What I'm going to start with really is just why you guys actually do an audit every year. What's the whole purpose of it? And basically it's because you have to. The state, KDE, they require it. Also, grantor agencies, whether they be state or federal, they also require it. And from your bonds, they also do too. Beyond that, it's also just a good thing to do every year, to check everybody. So from that, basically, with a financial audit, there are 3 different audits that you guys have every year. One of those being the financial audit. The purpose of that is to receive an opinion on your on the financial statements and the notes to the financial statements, whether they are materially correct. For that audit, you guys received the highest opinion on that. Basically, it's a clean audit. From that, what it actually means is whenever Ms. Sweet presents things to you guys, the financials, they are correct. So she is providing you guys good information. From that also, once you actually receive that opinion, your all's financials can be provided to the bond people, grantor agencies, those types of things. The second type of audit that is in here is a yellow book audit. Basically, that is a governmental audit. The 2 purposes of that are to evaluate your all's internal control over financial reporting, and also to see your all's compliance with laws and grant covenants. With that one, you guys also received a clean opinion on the compliance. One thing that's usually focused on with an audit is findings. From the yellow book audit, that would be where the findings typically, are. For this year and in prior years too, there were no audit findings for the district, which speaks very highly of the finance officer and the staff. The third type of audit that you all have is called a single audit. Basically, that is for the federal monies that you guys spend, not actually receive, it's spent money. So what you spend $750,000 of federal money, that triggers that financial audit. Also in that part of the audit, similar to the yellow book, but it's just for the federal money. So it's compliance with the actual grants that are federal and to evaluate your all's internal control. Whenever we do that audit, we have what is called major programs. So all of your all's financial monies are not actually audited, it's just what programs that are major. For this year, no surprise, it was your all's COVID monies, ESSER monies. In total, you guys had $1.2 million that you all received. No, I'm sorry, 2.05 million in those type of actual funds, which, you know, seeing as it was a bad year, really actually boosted you guys up. So good news is your all's financial statements are good and there are no findings with your all's audit. Also in there, part of it is for the school activity funds. Those are separate. There were two small issues that we found. It was just POs not being used. Those were not just systemic problems, so they're just little points that we actually throw in there too, just things that you can improve on, but that is what they did compared to the prior years. There was a great amount of improvement at the school activity level. Just a few highlights here. Fund 1 fund balance went up by $1.2 million. And the total fund balance in Fund 1 looks like it's about $3 million. So you guys are sitting very well financially. If you all are trying to compare this year to the prior year, one big change now is that the school activity fund is actually reported with these school district funds. So that will show on the financials in here, also on your all's on the AFR, it's now called Fund 25. So those are also in there. That way, you know, you can see them on the AFR. So that was a big change from the prior year. That's pretty much what I have. You know, once again, it was a job well done, and your all's school district is sitting well financially. Do you guys actually have any questions for me or anything? Or?
No, go ahead.
This may be a question for Ms. Jenny, but you said we're $1 million ahead. Is that mainly due to COVID money, or?
Yes,
Okay.
a portion of that is due to allowable transfers that were, you know, expenses that the district incurred to combat COVID.
I don't have any questions for you. It's always good to hear you say that we got a good report. You know, that's always, which I'm not surprised. I guess after I look at it, if I have any questions, I'd probably feel just as confident talking to Judy, and I don't mean that in any negative way, but you had said something, so the school activity fund is reflected on this?
Yeah, it will show.
Are all of our, is everything through school activity fund now? We don't have any boosters floating around out there that does
No.
not go through that?
They
Okay.
are all school activity accounts.
All right, thank you.
Page 82.
What page?
Page 82.
82. I guess the reason I asked that, and I hate to, you know, dwell on something like that, I get asked more questions about in-school monies than I ever do as far as a district-wide thing.
Yep.
Do you all experience that too? So
From our standpoint, that is the riskiest part of the audit, because there is cash flowing through there. Whenever you have cash, you have, you know, possible problems. But what the state has done is they actually came in and set standards called the Red Book for them to follow, which is what I actually do the school activity funds by their audit, which is actually more stringent than just a financial audit.
does anyone have any other questions? Miss Angie, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. I'm sitting here looking through it on the computer, so sorry I was getting distracted. But yeah, I'm looking at it and I reviewed it, and it is good to know that it's all good.
you had said something about ESSER funds. In the future, will we have to, when you report that, is that gonna be something that will be different in the reporting process of, in audits, do you think?
In the
Because
reporting
there's been
process-
such a
Yeah,
huge
well,
amount of money given out, I guess.
One thing that they do is in the single audit that is called, it's based on risk. So those are a higher risk part of the audit. So whenever they're actually in there, they will be a part of the single audit. There will be no option to not actually include them in my testing. So that is the big thing with those, is that they're high risk and you have to audit it. There is no option.
Anybody have any questions? No. I'll go home and study this,
All
Kenny.
right, if you have any questions, you can always call me or send me an email.
Well, thank you very much. We
Thank you all for
appreciate
having
you.
me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shad, just thank you for being in our district, and it was a pleasure to work with you and your staff.
Same here. Thank you guys. Y'all
Thank
have a good
you.
one.
You too, be safe.
Okay, our audit has been presented to us, a really good audit. I always, in the past, looked at the pages where they have their findings, their management letter points, and our schools are doing a very good job. And, with that being said, if anyone doesn't have any other questions, we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Have a first and a second, all in favor?
Yes.
These are very confusing to me still sometimes when you look at these numbers. I'm sure if anyone has any questions after you have a chance to look over, you can call Miss Jenny and she can answer any questions you have.
Miss Angie, I want to take just a second and compliment Miss Jenny and all of our school staff, our bookkeepers and our principals. They've worked really hard to correct some findings from last year, and we've made certain that we've gotten adequate Red Book training, and just Miss Jenny has really led that with our bookkeepers and our principals and working to make sure we made those necessary corrections. So I just want to thank them for their efforts and for all of their hard work. They've done an excellent job.
And do that probably really short-staffed.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Item 5B is review and approve the monthly financial reports. Ms. Jenny?
You have your financial reports for the month ending in December, and if you've had an opportunity to review those, if there are any questions, be glad to answer those, and certainly at any time if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. You may have noticed back in, I'll just mention, you may have noticed in the expenditure reports, we did have bond payments, was a large portion of our expenditures. I think those were on one individual report. So I just wanted to mention, if you look back at those, I figured that would be one of our questions tonight, but we did have some bond payments that went out. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Jenny? Okay. With that being said, I need a motion to approve our monthly financial reports.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Item 5C, review and approve the 22-23 draft budget.
Okay, you have a copy of the draft budget in your folder there, and I just want to highlight a few things as we consider our draft budget. Really, this is our first step in planning for next school year, and I always think about Dr. Tina Hasty whenever we get ready to talk about budgets, because I would always say, you know, I'm excited to present this budget to you, and it is exciting. You know, it's even more exciting whenever you hear from the passion that's in our schools, from, you know, Miss Sandy and the students from Roundstone, Mr. Bishop, presenting positive data from instruction, and that's why we're all here. We're here to make a difference for our students. and absolutely to spend every single dollar that comes into our school district, making an impact. Just a couple of highlights. As of today, we have 2,811 students in our school district enrolled. That's why we're here and it's who we serve. Our December payroll, we had 213 teachers, 560 employees, that includes our substitutes. Our budget for the draft is really just that first glimpse at what we're looking at for next school year. I tend to budget very conservatively for our revenues and expenditures because we want to have that baseline of where we are for the next school year so that we can work to plan best with our dollars that are available. We continue to budget a contingency of $1.8 million. We'll be talking about 3 budgets over the next few months, and the effort that we'll put into that is to leverage those local, state, and federal dollars. Wanted to just kind of highlight, we could spend a great deal of time talking about revenues, expenditures, and where all of those come from. We'll be highlighting more information about the budget in the months to come. So I want to just kind of point out to you kind of where our calendar as far as looking at the budget with the budget cycle. So this month we're looking just at the draft budget. What is our baseline? What are the baseline of funds that we're working with? A couple of things that were differences, you will not see a great number of differences between the draft budget and your current budget because we've not made any changes to the salary schedule. We've not made changes for rank changes or step increases for our staff. So there would be many similarities. One of the changes will be the CERS rate. We've talked about that before. That's the retirement rate for our classified staff. The state has set that will increase at 12% per year. For next year, that rate will be 30.18%, and that's a significant impact that's having on an annual basis to our budget. Again, we've based the draft budget on current staffing allocations. The tentative budget will be presented in May. It will include the tentative staffing allocations that Ms. Ballinger and district staff along with schools will be discussing. We've already started some of those conversations and we'll be looking at some data in the upcoming weeks. That is due to school councils by March 1st, and that's just a tentative allocation. During kind of the March-April time frame, Ms. Ballinger will be bringing to you the salary schedule to review, and that is set by the board in order for us to be able to use those numbers to develop the tentative budget in May. Once we kind of go through those summer months and we may have staff that are pursuing additional certifications, and we will utilize their rank changes to update our budget for working budget that will come back in September. On the next page, I just wanted to highlight some of the things that that will impact our general fund. Not only things within the district, but our legislature is in session, and there are some preliminary discussions that we're all very interested in learning more about and seeing where that discussion leads. One of the biggest conversations will be SEEK. SEEK, as you know, is our base funding. It's a very complicated formula that I'm not very good at explaining, but there are many, many factors that go into SEEK. The largest factor is our guaranteed base, and our guaranteed base is based on the number of students that we have enrolled, and if the legislature looks to increase SEEK, it could make a significant impact on our budget and the decisions that we would make for the future. I've just jotted down some numbers. Again, these are preliminary discussions that we're hearing about. Currently, SEEK is at $4,000 per student. if you would, just some numbers to look at, if we were to have an increase to 4,100, that would be fabulous. You would see that base seek reach above 10 million. If it were to be 4,200, you know, that would be fabulous as well. That's one of the things that's being discussed. SEEK has held steady at that 4,000 for a number of years. If you look down, I think our base allocation in 2016 for SEEK was a little over 10 million. So it's been a while since our school district has been at that 10 million, you know, level, and that has resulted in some of the decreased funding that we've talked about over the years. One of the most insignificant funding conversations and the impact that it could have in our district is whether or not the legislature will approve to increase our transportation fund. The current level is, it's being funded at about 55%. I know Mr. Hopkins would be ecstatic to be able to have that increase in the transportation budget. Obviously, we are very dependent on school buses to transport our students to and from school safely. And, you know, the dollars lost by only being funded at 55% have had a significant impact on every school district across the state of Kentucky. We must constantly update our fleet of buses, and I think that's been one of the most challenging aspects for school districts, is to continue to update our fleet. And Rockcastle County Schools and the board, you have made a commitment over the years that we are going to continue to, you know, buy those new buses every year, even though there have been years that it's been difficult to find the funding. There's discussion that they could be funded at 70% or at 100%. Wouldn't that be great to be funded at where we're actually supposed to be? If that were to happen, that would be a $768,000 increase for Rockcastle County Schools.
You're going to give Ken a heart attack.
It would enable us to buy some additional buses, and certainly supporting the salaries of our transportation, not only our transportation staff, but it would make a difference for our entire school district. So those are just some numbers to kind of think about, and you know.
There was also discussion of what to fund kindergarten at 100%.
Yes. That, you know, that for our school district, that's around a little over $500,000 to fund the half day. We receive funding for half day kindergarten, and the board decided several years ago to go ahead and implement full day kindergarten, you know, when it was not funded. So we made some significant changes across the district to come up with those funds, and you know, we're able to implement all day kindergarten. But to have that extra $500,000 to support it makes a great difference. Great difference. So as you're talking with legislatures, certainly keep in mind, you know, encourage that support for SEEK. It's going to make a difference in our schools. It's going to help us to address the learning gaps that have been created because of our effort to come back and teach in a COVID years, and it's very important for us moving forward, and absolutely supporting transportation at being funded at 100%. Just to point out our expenditures, you'll see a breakdown of where Rockcastle County Schools spends our general fund, and this is what supports all of our staff. Rockcastle continues to focus on students, and you'll see that those dollars are you know, highlighted in instruction, student support, and just making a difference for kids every day. So you'll see those breakdowns. One of the areas that in meeting with all of our directors, we tried to look at areas that we might be able to trim back a little bit and save some dollars. And one of the areas is electricity. And Mr. Trent did some calculations. We were able, because of our energy saving project, we were able to trim back our, our budget for electricity. We will be able to have a better picture when we have a full year behind us and we see, from building to building, what were the actual savings. And, that's been a great project, and we're already seeing impacts in our electricity bills.
Ms. Judy, what percentage of our overall budget is personnel?
We historically have run a little over 80%, and we've made some gains in trimming that back, and that continues to be a goal. If we could get about 78 to 80%, it will open up some funding to support, instruction in our classrooms, and we know that we will have many needs when our federal COVID relief dollars are no longer available. And we have all been planning and developing spreadsheets, and Miss Jessica's been tracking all of the instructional programs that we've needed to support students, and we are already putting in place our efforts to, when we come out of COVID and using those federal funds, how will we fund those programs? So we've started those conversations, and that's one of a very, very important task for us.
So we're right now around 80%.
Around 80. Mm-hmm.
And you'd like for it to be more like
78% would be a good place for Rockcastle County Schools, yeah. Yeah, so, I think we've made some, Ms. Ballinger has been leading that work, and, we've had to look at every single position and, what is best? Are we making those decisions based on needs? And those are the most difficult decisions for district staff, for school staff. But with the increases of 12% in retirement year after year, and needing to look at cost of living raises for our staff, our students are our most precious resource. But it is so important that we continue to maintain and support a highly qualified, well-trained staff to work with those students. So I know that's conversation that the board will be having in the months to come, and we'll be bringing some data to you to look at and to help in making those decisions. So our next steps is certainly to begin to have those conversations. Ms. Ballinger will continue to work with the leadership team and with school principals and school councils to have a conversation about what are the needs for our school district in the next school year. And we will work together to develop a budget that best supports those needs. So I did not want to get into the weeds and talk about specific numbers. All those numbers are preliminary. Again, when you look at the budget, coming into a draft budget, I tend to budget very conservatively. So if you look at some of those numbers, you might think, oh, for our our local taxes, that might look a little bit lower than what actual it will be. I look at trend data as to what we have actually collected and use that to develop the budget. So once we kind of get a little bit further in and we know a little bit more about SEAT, and we know what the legislature may do, we'll have more to work with. And you'll also be looking at all the other funds. We'll look at our Fund 2, all of our grants, and grants has been a big conversation for us, and lots of efforts there to make sure that we're maximizing every dollar for our students. Do you have any
I do
questions?
have another question. I'm just trying to get it in my head. The CERS, could you give me like a dollar, like what's the difference in what we paid last year and what we're going to pay? I mean, just so that I can.
I think it was 112. Actually, I thought that I put that in here, but maybe not. $122,584 is the increase from current year to what we will pay in next fiscal year.
And then that will increase again.
Another 12%.
Thank you, Ms. Jenny.
Certainly.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just was curious.
Absolutely.
When I have a dollar amount, I understand it a little bit better.
If you have any questions, again, anytime, feel free to reach out.
Have any questions?
I was gonna ask about enrollment. I know it's dropped over time, but where,
Actually, we're up quite a bit. I was gonna point that out. I'm glad Jenny had that up there. At the beginning of the year, last year, we were like 27, 23 enrollment. That's the lowest we've been in some time. I think there's a variety of reasons for that. I think there were parents that kept their kids home because of the COVID situation last year. So at the beginning of the year, we were at like 2790 in enrollment. As she pointed out, we're at 2811. We have, of course, and after Christmas break, we always do have, there's change. Some students move in, but we've had a lot move in over the last 3 weeks, really. So we're up from the beginning of the year, 21 students. We've had, we've had some come back from homeschool, and that's an ongoing process, just the nature of the way the last year has been, unfortunately. But I'm glad to see that numbers is creeping up there.
that's good.
Thank you again, Miss Jenny, which you're not done, it doesn't look like so. But we do need a motion. These numbers, I'm always amazed at how she comes up with them in general, but like she says, she budgets very conservatively for us, so these will probably change by quite a bit. So, but we do need a motion to approve the 2022, 2023 draft budget that's been presented to us tonight.
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Angie. Okay, item 5D, review and approve the School Facilities Construction Commission, the SFCC offer of assistance.
We have received an offer of assistance in the amount of $22,660. And the district typically has transferred the SFCC offer to escrow. And you may recall we had some conversations. You're like, okay, what is this offer of assistance and when will we use it? We used one of our offers of assistance that was preparing to expire for our energy project. So we have several others that are still in escrow that we will be able to use at a future time. So this is a new offer that we would like to present to you for consideration, and if approved, we will make the necessary transfers and provide the necessary documentation in the building fund and capital outlay.
How long do these sit before they do expire? Is each one different, or?
They are. Currently, we have some offers that are still in escrow from 2000. We have a 2014, 16, 18, and 2020. So now we'll add the 22 offer.
So they don't limit you on when you have to spend it?
They do expire. The one that we did with the energy project was preparing to expire, so we needed to utilize it. We were able to maximize that resource.
Where does that funding show at, like, with what we see?
Okay. It's a transfer in your in our debt and capital outlay. So I don't know if you really see it. Once you make the recommendation, we keep that on the books, and it's reported, annually to KDE.
And then we know, like through our working with Compass Financial, then they provide us information of this is amount that we have in escrow that we could use towards a building project.
So we can use them separately, or we can use them all at once?
Yes.
Completely. Why did I not remember? Do you remember this?
No, I thought that in the past, it was money that had to be utilized at that time, and that's why we always did that.
You use it or lose it.
So capital outlay, we do use annually.
Because you have to clear out it has to have a balance of zero.
Yep. So currently, we have received our first half-year payment for capital outlay, and so that you'll see that in our fund. And once we bring a proposal to you as to how we're going to utilize that for this year, it will just clear out of that fund and be transferred to our debt service.
But this offer of assistance is going to come from the state, okay? And we're gonna take a matching fund out of our general fund,
Yes,
and all of that is gonna go into capital outlay.
it
That's
goes
an
into an
escrow.
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 An escrow
It
account.
goes into an escrow.
So we always have to match the amount of assistance
Yes,
that they're allowing
yes,
us.
Yes.
Okay. So the money that's in escrow, we have already done the match.
We've
We're not
already
gonna
done the
have to
match. Right.
come up with that, okay.
No,
Okay, I
exactly.
guess that was gonna be,
Yeah.
could maybe at the next meeting, you give us a list of what we
Sure.
have in escrow, just
Sure.
so that we
I'll
could
have
have that,
that.
I mean, I didn't know we did it that way, it makes sense now that you've said that.
Our total, SFCC offers, that are in escrow is $129,228, but it would be more than that because we've matched it.
Okay, so it
So it'd
has
be
a
double
match.
that, basically.
And we have that information in
We
our,
do.
in our Compass data, so we'll get that to you.
Yeah, just something, so that we'll have something to read late at night.
Absolutely, when we can't sleep.
We can't sleep, which is never.
Move to approve the offer and the match.
Ms. Angie,
Second.
okay, got a second, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, item 5E, review and approve the first reading of the 22-23 school calendar committee recommendation.
I'll stand up here like Miss Jenny did, stretch my legs a little bit. So as you all know, at the December meeting, you approved the school calendar committee. A few years ago, the state legislature made this part of the process that the school board approves a committee that's made up of very specific members of the school community and the community at large to come up with a school calendar for the following school year. And of course, it's hard to believe, but we're there. We're just beginning 2022, but we're planning into 2023 with next school year. And so the committee, we met on that Thursday after you all approved them on Tuesday. And there were several things that we considered in terms of a school calendar. The most important thing, of course, obviously, is maximizing instruction, making sure that we have the maximum amount of instruction time for all of our students. There are legal considerations that we have to abide by. For instance, if we go on a regular calendar, that has to be 170 school days. We've not been on a regular calendar the last couple of years. This year we're variable calendar. Last year we were variable calendar. So there's that debate between, do we have a variable calendar option or do we have a regular calendar option? So the state provides us that flexibility. So the committee, we discussed those options, and I think most of you are aware of most of that, and I can give you that information if you'd like to know the difference between the two, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little more. Another consideration is instruction time versus professional development time. You know, we do have some options where that last year that was very important when we talked about we were under a variable calendar. Do we want to have more days for instruction or more days for professional development? We knew this year that our professional development needs were going to increase because of learning loss and some of the issues that were brought about by COVID, and so that impacted this year's decision, of course. We also look at things like community events, what's going on in the community, economic impact of the calendar. We're charged to look at that impact by state law as well. And then, of course, we discussed NTI days. And we for last year, actually during the COVID year, I guess, during the emergency time there, we were approved as an NTI district. We were last year, we are this year. This is our first, I guess, normal school year as an NTI district, traditional NTI district. Last year, we had many NTI days. Of course, this year it went back to 10. And from what we all understand, I think it's going to stay at that.
Is that something that we have to reapply for every year?
Are they not proposing to give 10 more NTI days?
It's not 10 NTI days. So an NTI day, it can be used across an entire district. So just as we took off this week due to weather, those can be used for weather, any kind of emergency, COVID, flu, however the district wants to use those days. They are proposing 10 days per school in addition to the 10 county
Not
days.
per district.
10
to
per
burn.
school. So Mount Vernon Elementary would have 10 days that they could use specifically for COVID if their numbers started to spike. Or Broadhead has 10 days, Roundstone. So each school has 10 additional days.
Could we do it district-wide all at once?
Cannot. that's in the legislation, that
I
has to be
wasn't
used
sure
for
how that was,
individual
I knew
schools.
it was something.
We actually utilized one of those, I think September 24th at the high school. We used, they're called temporary remote instruction, TRI.
So we initially
So we
had
got all these,
20.
all these acronyms. But we did use one, but those expired December 31st.
Yes, we
that
had
they're
20,
proposing, right.
those expired. Now the proposal is to grant us 10 and
Per school.
per school.
Right now, we don't have any. That's got to go through the process.
Yeah, right now we.
So
Okay, sorry.
we'll kind of handy, well, we'll just wait to see what they do over the next few weeks. Hopefully, I'm understanding they're trying to fast track that.
Yes.
Senate Bill 25. But, so those are all considerations and the decisions that are made. We met, as I said, on December 16th, and I developed 2 options for the calendar committee. And both of the options this year, after I began to look at everything, both options this year are regular calendar options. And the main reason for that is by law, if you do a variable calendar option, you cannot start school before I believe it's the Monday closest to August 26th. I think that's how the law's worded, very specific. Well, under this calendar, if you look at August, we would have to start August 29th. And, just talking to committee members, talking to folks in general, most folks felt like that was too late to start the school year, especially if we want to have a fall break and a spring break. And the feedback that at least I received and most committee members received was that a fall break was very beneficial, and it just to start recharge folks, and to start that late, it would be very difficult to have a full week of fall break. And so that's why both of these calendar options are regular calendar options. Now, with that said, they're 170 days. So for instance, this year, because we're under and the difference between a variable calendar option and a regular calendar option is under a variable calendar, we only have to go 1,062 hours of instruction time. The 170-day mark is waived, so once we get to 1,062 hours of instruction, we have fulfilled our legal requirements. So this year, just to give you an example, that'll be 166 days for us. So that's 4 days less than the regular calendar option. But again, looking at this calendar and looking at those considerations, felt like it was best to go with the regular calendar option, and that way we could increase our instruction days, which we all felt was the most important. So the committee discussed again both of these options, option 1, option 2. They were very similar. There were some things. We looked at the start date of school. Well, Mr. Clark was on the committee, and we know that Mount Vernon's going to have renovation projects this summer, and he said, I don't know how we can start before August 17th, because he needs that time to make sure everything gets finished at Mount Vernon. So that limited us a little bit there in terms of our start date. And I checked with some other districts. That's a very common start date throughout the state is this August 17th date. And many districts are going to start that date. Most folks like starting on a Wednesday to get those 3 days in there. And then if we look, the considerations, fall break was again very popular. Having the week of spring break, very popular. One difference in this year, this calendar option for next year, as opposed to this year, is that this year we didn't take off election day because there wasn't an election day. It's that odd year. There's 1 year out of the 4-year election cycle that there is no election day, and so we have to take that day off. So that added another day that we have to take off. So that's why again we're starting a little bit sooner, the August 17th date. We did also talk about the value of embedded PD days. We've had those for several years, and our administrative staff, our principals, and even our teachers felt like those were of great value at those different points in the year. I know, we just had one of those last week, and that was very, Ms. Ballinger and I went around schools, and I know our principals met with teachers, and it was a very valuable day for us, and most folks felt like that was very important to keep those days as well. Thanksgiving break hasn't changed much. Christmas break, it's a little bit early, the December 16th date there. And we talked about on the second option, I adjusted that a little bit.
But the consensus was most folks wanted more time off before Christmas as opposed to after Christmas. And so that was the rationale for this calendar option. We did have the PD day there, January 3rd. You can see down at the bottom, I've got all of the instructional days, the holidays laid out there. We have to take off Martin Luther King Day, of course.
It's listed as a break and not a holiday.
We could list it as a holiday, but we can only list 4 days as holidays.
Okay.
And so there's really not a whole lot of difference. The difference in a holiday and a break day is that staff gets paid for that holiday.
Okay.
So, we could have switched that and New Year's Day or even Christmas Day or Thanksgiving Day or Labor Day. Historically, we've had those 4 days as holidays. I didn't see any reason to change that, but we do have to take off for Martin Luther King Day. So that's just listed as a break day, just like President's Day.
Absolutely.
So we wouldn't go to school on those days, but we could, if you wanted to, you could.
We probably have something in our board policy that states though that paid holidays are they specified in our policy probably? Christmas, Thanksgiving,
We have to have those
Yeah,
four.
it's probably specified.
For sure, and I didn't change it, just left it kind of the way it was and just made that a break day, which again, we're observing that this year and we observe that every year and we have to. Spring break again there that week. The committee found value in keeping, if we're going to continue to have a fall break and a spring break, trying to have it the same week every year. While we wouldn't guarantee that, if we attempt to have some uniformity in that fall break week and that spring break week, that would give folks some idea in terms of planning. And so last year I keep saying last year, it's this year. This year, spring break will be observed that same week there, the first week of April, and so we left those weeks the same.
Mr. Ripper, can
yes.
I ask you a question? I know years ago, one of the biggest concerns, we used to have huge winters where there was so much snow and we had so many school days. Is that a topic of conversation now at all? Because, and the only reason I say that, I'm a fan for spring break, but that was one of the reasons why we didn't do it.
It is certainly an area that we have discussion about that quite a bit, actually. The difference is those 10 NTI days give us flexibility. That gives us 2 weeks that historically we hadn't had. We were not an NTI district until a couple of years ago. So that does give us that flexibility, just like the 2 days last week. Those were actual instruction days. And so historically, those would have been days off school. We'd add them to the end of the calendar. So that 10 NTI days does give us that flexibility, and it allows us to have this calendar. In terms of the law, I have to look back the previous 5 years, and I have to plan makeup days. I have to have the same number of makeup days as we've had in the previous 5 years. So that was 12. I think in 16, 17, we missed 12 days. So if we are an NTI district next year, which I fully anticipate us being that would be 10 days that we would have. And then if you look at this calendar, that would still leave, we do have to take off that May 16th date. That's a primary election date. And then the closing day would be the 25th. That would give us 5 days. That's including Memorial Day. But even if you took out Memorial Day and you add in the 10 NTI days, that gives us 14 days to miss. Now, of course, we could miss more than that. That's certainly a possibility. If we did, that would push us into June. So that's the downside of putting in a full week of fall break and a full week of spring break.
I guess the only reason, one of the reasons I'm asking that is our NTI days are instructional days, but we should not kid ourselves, and there's a difference in an NTI day and a in-classroom day for our students.
Right. That's right.
And we had talked about trying to bring these kids up to where we want them. Is that still the option we want to do?
And we don't, it's a board decision in terms of being an NTI district.
No, I'm in favor of NTI, but I'm just,
right.
I'm curious, if we were to miss 12 days because of snow, Ken, sorry, would that be something is 10 days, would we want to use all of our NTI days because of snow?
Well, and just,
I'm just curious. That's getting us off topic.
Well, just like for this year, if you all remember back in September, because of COVID, we closed for 2 days. Those 2 days were not NTI days. Those were days that we closed school for 2 days.
And so in this calendar, we would have 4 days where we'd be able to have, and not go into June. So that's another consideration. You know, do we want to have a spring break? Do we want to take some of those days and potentially not go into June, or would folks rather go into June and have a full week spring break? You know, some of those things, it's a balance in terms of what folks would like to have.
Because of what you're saying is almost, this is a good calendar.
Oh, I love this calendar. Yeah, I don't have a problem with
That's
it.
almost why I like the variable better, because like we get and we've missed 3 more days than what we need to. And then we can go back and we can say, okay, instead of getting out at 3:05, we're gonna push that to 3:20 for these months or these weeks. Well, then that adds back to our hours.
Like last year,
Instead of the days. And that's almost why the variable calendar, I tend to like it better, but I do like this.
you know, there have been years, of course, when there's been, and it's a state legislature decision, obviously, but there have been years where, you know, districts had missed 25, 30 days and NTI wasn't around. And the states gave some relief. We can't rely on that, of course, but that has happened in the past. And again, we're early on here. We can amend the calendar. You know, you all could amend this year's calendar if the next few weeks is terrible in terms of weather and you wanted to change this year's calendar, and instead of having a full week spring break, have 3 days, you know, that we could do that. That's an option. You can amend it.
Be crucified. That is not what my
Well,
church.
folks do make plans. Folks do make plans.
I mean,
So-
I guess that's the reason, because I remember years ago, I know Miss Jenny remembers this, that was one of the reasons we took it out of the calendar. I mean, when it got up to end of February, we would make an amendment and add a spring break, but.
Had that caveat.
Yeah,
There's
right.
always that caveat, you know.
I mean, I guess that's the reason, which, you know, things are a lot different now. NTI's made things different, but.
It does provide flexibility.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
that option. You know, we'd have 14 days and then we get in June. So that's where we'd be, you know.
I will
in this calendar.
tell you, the only thing I've had anyone comment to me personally about the calendar this year, and it's really good because I forgot to relay this message and you accommodated them. I had a parent of a student that does some type of FFA thing at the state fair, and she said thank you because this was the first time that her child got to do whatever at the state fair, and it did not interfere with like the first few days of school. That's
We started the 25th.
This one will be back to that.
We started.
With that,
But that's okay.
yeah, I mean, but that's the only thing I had anyone comment to
And,
about.
you know, there is an attendance code for the state fair. There's an exemption code.
Yes.
If a student goes to the state fair, they're not counted absent. It's like an EHO, and we can code that. And so that's, you know, obviously we want them to be in school, but
That
as
was
far in
the
terms of
only thing
attendance.
that anyone had commented. I mean, everything else was very favorable.
I mean, I support this. We went on fall break. We loved it. I like the idea of a full week spring break. I think it's good for people to be able to plan. I guess what I would challenge us to do is, after this year and we learn how to do NTI, is say, are NTI snow days effective? Like we all know they're not as good as a full school day, but we also know a school day in June is not much good either. Frankly, most days in May aren't very good. When the sun's shining, nobody wants to be there. So, I mean, let's be honest about that. I don't think a June 2nd day is going to be very good either. But yeah, I mean, I think if you all can say to us a year from now that, hey, we think we figured out how to do an NTI snow day and we've got good participation and stuff is happening, then I'm good with that. On the other hand, if y'all say a year from now, it's not so good, then I think we have to go back and punt for the following school year and say maybe we draw back on this a little bit.
And I totally agree with that, Matt. Today, prior to these meetings, I meet with our superintendent advisory council, which is made up of a teacher from each school, and that's exactly what we focused on. That was our agenda. Was we've had 2 NTI days. Now let's talk about what worked. Let's talk about what went well, what didn't go well. How do we need to adjust, and just getting the teachers' input on that. So kind of like an after action review of we've done 2. It's the first 2 we've ever done in the history of Rockcastle County Schools that have been real legitimate snow day, NTI days. So then getting their input on how we need to improve and what they saw, what did they experience. So
And I think the high school did a good job, by the way.
I was going, as a parent, this tool right here, and the more familiar, just as my two kids have come with using it and being able to, you know, chat back and forth with their kids, this has become a huge deal maker for those days, I think.
And I think there is no doubt where we've come in terms of improvement on in virtual instruction. There's no doubt. And it's not the same as being in the classroom. We all know and understand that. But it certainly, I think we're better. And I think we're continuing to get better and improve.
Right.
I think our kids are becoming used to it more so, where 2 years ago or even a year ago, they were so lost. I don't think they have that deer in headlight look anymore.
But we're just one ice storm away. Nobody have electricity from having.
Right. Yeah.
What we can't have. What we can't have. That was an issue that we ran into last year. We couldn't have an NTI day because a lot of people didn't have electricity. So you couldn't. So that's also a reality, that curveball that we never. You never know. So, but that's why again, even in this calendar, there are 4 and 5 if you count Memorial Day. There'd be 5 days that we could call true snow day and still be not be into June.
Well, I hope we get to take spring break without any interruption.
I do
And
too.
fall break.
I do too. This week's looks good, so maybe we're almost halfway through January. So this was option 1 was the overwhelming recommendation of the committee. There was a little bit of discussion about option 2, but overwhelmingly the committee favored option 1. I did tell them too, we weren't locked into these 2 options. We could do a hybrid if the committee wanted to change some things on option 1 and maybe do a blend and mix and match, they could do that, but they didn't prefer to do that. They liked this one. So that's where we're at. So I'm asking the board to presenting this recommendation to you for your consideration. And we also, if you vote to approve this calendar, we have to have another reading at the February meeting. And so this is a draft until that point.
Okay, so this calendar has been recommended by Mr. Marcus. This is it's for 170 instructional days. It's not stating anything to do with hours, but days, and you see it. Looks good to me.
March will be a long month.
Oh, I hadn't even noticed.
That's still iffy, isn't it? It's an iffy month.
Yeah.
Big time, yeah.
I need a motion to approve the first reading.
Motion.
Okay.
Okay.
All in favor by aye? Aye.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ruppert. We'll see you again next month.
Thank you all.
Review and approve Rockcastle County Schools strategic plan. I can barely spit that out.
So, as you all know, as board members, this has been a long process. We knew going into it, it was gonna be a long process. Our strategic planning committee was made up of a broad group of people. It included all of our board members. It included our principals, our administration, our district office staff, parents, community members, and members of our classified staff as well. So we had a broad representation going into doing this work. Really proud of this and excited about what this is going to do for the future of Rockcastle County Schools. I think that this is going to be something that we will definitely work to promote within our schools. That is going to drive our decision making. As we're looking at the budget, as Ms. Jenny and I are working with principals, we're going to use this document. Does the budget that we're setting, does this match what our vision and our mission is for Rockcastle County Schools? And does this support, does the work that we do day in and day out support this? And as we even look at programs, and as they were talking with Miss Jessica and looking at programs that we're using through COVID, do those programs that we're using within our schools, are they supportive of the work that this team has set forward, of the parameters that they have set for what Rockcastle County Schools stands for? So we will be using this document to drive all of those decisions. The vision that we have set is rocket learners to rocket leaders. And I really am satisfied with that because I think it speaks exactly what we want for our students. When they're in in our classrooms, we're striving every day for them to be learners. But why? What are they going to do with those skills? And as moving forward, they will be leaders, not only in our community, but in our state and our nation. So very proud of that vision. The mission of Rockcastle County Schools is to be a unifying force in our community, to educate, encourage, and empower the whole child to become a lifelong learner and a leader in a global society. Now, as all of you know, this can be just words on a page, but now it's up to us as leaders, as the school board, as district leaders, as principals, to put this document into action. So we want to make sure that this doesn't just get thrown on a shelf somewhere, that our teachers, it's in the hands of our teachers. Mr. Reppert and I went into each school on the PD day. We've introduced this to our school staff, talked through this, very limited talking with them. But now, looking forward, I would like for your eyes to go, if you would look at the pillars that are on the bottom right. These are our areas of our key areas within the district. And if you notice, student achievement and student readiness are at the top because that's what we're about as students. You know, that's what our focus is. Our finance system, our operations, which is our transportation, food service, technology, maintenance, community engagement and partnerships, student support, safety and well-being, and professional learning and staff support. Those will be our key areas of focus moving forward. We can tie a department head to each one of those pillars. These department heads have if you all remember, they did their SWOT analysis and they looked at their strengths and their weaknesses, their opportunities and their threats. So using all of that data, they will be coming forward monthly at our leadership team meetings and reporting out on their goals and how they're doing in meeting those. So again, it's up to us as leaders of Rockcastle County Schools to make certain that this is not just words on a page, that this is meaningful, and that to our staff and as well as our students. So thank you all for the work. I know you all committed a lot of time to going through this, and I'm very appreciative of that.
When I opened it up, my words out of my mouth, I was by myself. I was like, "Oh, that's beautiful."
We got there.
Well, it was just the beginning of it, and how there was so many stakeholders part of that to come together and create that. So that's exciting for the district.
And I think that what you said there, having so many different people in one room, everyone there was focused. They had one true focus. It was their first students. I thought it was a very good opportunity just to hear what everyone, maybe that might be something we need to do more often.
Yeah, it was a great process.
Just get together, everyone, and, share why you have this concern, because you're going to have concerns that Ken may not have, so I just, and people like me not like hearing it, so I thought it was great. It was good. And the gentleman that led it, what was his name again?
Dr. Jim Evans.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Great.
He's done a great
very,
job.
and he's been
Very
dedicated to
thorough.
our school system.
Yeah, he was very pleasant, very pleasant.
Yeah, we're appreciative of his work and that of KEDC to help lead us through that process. So our next steps I will be coming to you and sharing the work in this pillar section that each department is doing. So we'll be sharing out and keeping you all informed on our growth goals.
Thank you, Miss Carrie. I think that looks great. I'm like, Misty, I was like, oh, it's like it's your baby or something. I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the strategic planning.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Item 6A, review the superintendent's personnel action report. You should have that available for you to look at.
Yes, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer that.
We are still taking substitute applications.
Yes, ma'am.
I had someone ask me that the other day, so.
Encourage people to please to come in and put their application in for that. We have I think we've done a really good job of promoting that. Ms. Jamie's helped us with that, and we've had several new applicants. So.
Item 6B, review the 2021 nutrition and physical activity report.
I think that everybody has a hard copy of this. So this looks at the prior school year, and this is something that we're required to report on each year in January. And of course, just like every other department with COVID, and food service was in constant transition last year, trying to figure out how to feed kids in all the different scenarios we had. But one major thing I highlighted there in that first paragraph was this was the first time in the history of our nation that all students got to eat free, across the nation. So it was terrible that it came because of a pandemic, but that was just something I wanted to note, and that continued this year. As long as the school district was implementing the National School Lunch Program, every student in the nation has got to have free lunch.
Wow, that's amazing.
Then moving on, Miss Carrie and I joked this morning about the different scenarios, and Mr. Ripper had to clarify with me. We started the school year virtually and remained that way for the most part until January of 2021 when we started the AB schedule. Through that time, we had a very wide variety of ways that we served our students. And if you all remember, we had the 40 community sites. That was very successful, and it took everybody in this room to make that happen, and all of our food service staff, of course, but that was a huge effort. We also did the direct door food boxes, which you all may remember, and then we had the on-site pickups at the school. So those were just some examples of different scenarios that we were transitioning to and from. I even remember the days that they were taking home food. Because they were on AB schedule, they were taking home a food bag for the next day. So it got really wild at times. And one thing that I thought of when Miss Carrie talked about our SWOT analysis, I think food service has evolved so much, even since the time that we did that food service has evolved so much that I almost need to redo my analysis because a lot of things that I identified are no longer applicable to my program. So once we returned to school, we of course served meals in the cafeteria and in the gym, so that there was social distancing, and we had the not prepackaged meals, but meals in to-go boxes. So that was our strategies when we returned to school. And then during all of last year, we did not actually operate under the National School Lunch Program. It was the summer food service program the entire year. So those have a little bit different meal requirements, and those are highlighted down at the bottom. On the left, breakfast is 1 cup of milk, a half a cup of fruit and vegetable, and 1 serving of grains. And then your lunch is a cup of milk, 3/4 total cup of fruits and vegetables, a serving of grains, and a 2-ounce meat or meat alternate. And that's much more flexible than your usual National School Lunch meal pattern. That was one reason I think they kind of kept that summer food service program in there, because they knew that it was more flexible. So if you look kind of at the center column, so operating the summer food service program also allowed us to serve children of all ages. We weren't just serving our students, we were serving, they could be 1 or 2 and they could still pick up lunch at their community site. So the numbers that you see in all the columns reflect those children as well. So if you look at the 2018-2019 school year, that was our last normal year. And then the 2019-2020 years where you see a decrease in almost all of our numbers, because that's the year that we had a short year, and in March, our kids were sent home. So if you look at the 2020-2021 year, even though we are a little bit less than what we would have had in 2018-2019, I still think for a COVID year, those numbers are still really, really good, considering all the different scenarios we had to get through. So we served 336,813 lunch or breakfast during COVID, and then 351,000 lunches in 2020-2021. I don't think that's a terrible comparison though to a normal year and a COVID year. And we know that during the whole COVID situation, everything wasn't always perfect. I mean, we know boxes of food to your door is not ideal, but it was better than nothing if you needed it. And then I guess the thing that excites me the most is the summer meal sites. If you look at, starting in June of 2021, our summer program was mainly just summer school. But as we got away from that and into July, we started doing the weekly pickups at each elementary school. And I remember that first week we had all this food and like all the food we could fit in our schools, and I was so worried. I was like, what if no one shows up? So I sent an email to all staff to make sure, go participate, because we don't want to have any of this food left over because it was perishables, and they wouldn't make it to the next week. So when I show up at Mount Vernon Elementary, Joe Rush said, I hope you have plenty of food. They're lined up to save a lot to Mount Vernon Elementary. So obviously participation was not a problem. Something to note with that is, you look at that really low number in 2019, we had never really had a very successful summer program, and I always said it was because you can't expect kids, for one, to have transportation, and two, for the summer program, you had to come and eat and physically eat the meal wherever you were picking it up. You couldn't take it back home with you, and that was a huge barrier for our program, I feel like. So if you look at that huge difference between 2019 and 2021, those non-congregate waivers is what made that happen. And I was at a conference a month or two ago, and Commissioner Quarles said that was one of his main goals, was to keep that non-congregate waiver in place so that students could have the access to those meals and be able to just pick them up and not make it a on-site program. If you look down at the financial impact part, you'll see that we had a gain even from a normal 2018-2019 school year, looking at the 2020-21 school year with the summer program. And part of that is due to, of course, the increase in the actual summer program for the months of June and July of last year. And then also, summer has higher reimbursement rates, so that helped increase that as well. And then commodities, that amount has increased over the last few years as well. And that's just the money that we're allowed to use to purchase, like the commodity cheese and beef and the little strawberry and peach cups that everybody loves. That's what that money is used for. And we can also buy fresh produce with that money.
Is that money, do you get a letter? Is that based on our attendance? How do they decide?
It's based on the number of meals you served the year before. Mm-hmm. Do y'all have questions about the food service part?
Jamie, I just have to commend the people that work for you. I mean, I have a very picky child, and she loves school lunches, and she loves the people that serve. I mean, she loves these ladies. I mean, she talks about them all the time. I get a little jealous sometimes. She's like, I got a hug from this, but I mean, she loves it. So
they do a great job.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And Jamie, I know as we reflected back on the year, we laughed a little bit, but it's so true. I mean, your staff partnering with Ken's staff just did absolutely remarkable work, and our district, our mission and vision, we're about kids, and I think that this shows that when we were going through those dire times of COVID, our staff stepped up and we did feed kids and families, and really made a big difference in a lot of lives.
I don't know how we transitioned. I mean, when I look back, I'm like, how did they do that? Because they were the ones where we would call at the last minute and be like, we've got to send home food today, and they would somehow make it happen every time we had a request.
As we talked back through all the sites, the AV schedule, the bags, the mailing, and we just talked back through that, just like a flashback. How did we pull all that off? And it's all goes to your staff and to our bus drivers and the work that they did, because they were amazing, and we'll probably never be able to thank them enough for everything that they did for our kids.
I have to ask this question. Did we ever get any FEMA reimbursement for them to-go boxes?
Well, I hope one day that I hear the checks in the mail. No, we are still in the process. We said, we'll keep pursuing those funds until they tell us no.
We'll start writing one letter a week, and when that doesn't work, we'll start writing 2 letters a week.
Then it turned into, we'll just let them tell us no several times. So we we're moving along in the process. And,
What was the overall number that you submitted?
We worked and really fine-tuned, you know, our request, and, I'm hoping to see maybe $200,000, but that may be wishful thinking. Most of what we submitted was eligible. Now, it goes through lots of processes to meet their standard, and that's understandable. So we'll just keep praying and hoping that that check's in the mail, so that we can put it back in our funds, to support our, you know, our programs, and that's what it's all about.
Miss Jenny's been very persistent. She's not gonna give up on that FEMA money. She's worked really, really hard, and I know it's her record keeping that has gotten us this far, so.
I just had to ask, because when she started talking about all them meal deliveries, I was thinking about all them styrofoam, and I was trying to think of years ago when I had my own restaurant, the cost of a case of styrofoam boxes was not cheap, and you had to get a bunch of them. You know, it added up real fast.
We were fortunate during that time to be able to get them, because this year getting paper products is terrible.
Yeah.
I wanna make a comment really quick. I know we're going long on time, but just for your knowledge, if you have parents contact you or anybody that's watching, you know, we are experiencing a big issue with supply chain. So Miss Jamie and her staff are working so hard to make sure that our kids are receiving everything that they should be receiving every day, but it may not always be the same at every school. And it may not always be the same at every grade level. A kindergarten group may get something different than fifth grade. We're still providing the proper nutritious meals every day. We've never had any issue at all with that. It's just that we're not able to get as much food as we need for the entire district to be serving the same thing daily. So if you have parents ask you that, it's, you know, Miss Jamie's working hard and continues to work hard, but every day she's having shortage of items, and we're having to shop to try to find enough to get, you know, for those students or for that particular school.
Used to, we could place the order on Tuesday with GFS, and you didn't have to worry it was gonna be there on Thursday, and now we get an email on Tuesday morning, and it says, this is what you can't get, and it's usually upwards toward 50 items. Now today it was like 17, so it's not nearly as bad, but we don't know when it's gonna level out.
Are there other food distributors that you could turn to? I mean, is that something that's?
It's part of our bid with KEC, but pretty much everybody in the state pretty much uses them. But I have checked with people who use like Performance, and they're having the exact same issues.
Sure.
It's very similar to your Kroger click list. You get the printout that says we're out of these items. Well, that's what she gets, and then then she has to scramble to try to get what she needs.
We have to find a replacement. We have to go back, and that's part of the struggle. Is
that falls under what you need it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and they place their orders the week before, but their system does not allow them to tell us until Tuesday that we can't get it. Like, you know, most sites it'll say we have this many in stock. We have no idea when we place the order if it's in stock then or not. We just have to wait and see on Tuesday.
30 other districts have done the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Placed the same order, right? Yeah.
So just help us to share that message that with our families. If anyone asks you, if you would just help us get that out, that, you know, we're working diligently, and we have never experienced a time when any student has not gotten a full nutritious meal. It just may not be exactly what we had planned or hoped for.
That may be something, I'm sure you've already done this, that our legislation needs to know about that.
There isn't that's in legislation, isn't it? I think I've seen something like that for the.
Our Commissioner of Agriculture is aware, and I think he has spoke and is trying to move forward to help schools with that.
We've been given some extra money, which is in my department report, but I think it's a really deep problem. It starts at the manufacturer, then there's not enough logistical things like truck drivers. It's just a constant.
Employees.
Just like with everything else.
That's what I read. It was in your report.
Thank you, Miss Jamie. Department reports? Anyone have any questions about those? I just want to say I appreciate everyone. Ken, we've not called on you a whole lot tonight, but I do appreciate you and I appreciate your bus drivers and, I just want you to know that. All of you. Miss Carrie, got anything for us?
I want to say that January is Board Appreciation Month. So we have purchased each of you a Rockcastle County Schools jacket, just as a small token of our appreciation. It's not nearly enough for everything you all do, but thank you for what you do for Rockcastle County Schools and for just giving your time to our community and our kids and being so dedicated and loving kids and we just appreciate you so much, each and every one of you. And I'd asked Miss Jamie if she would care before each of you left, if she could snap a quick picture of you. If you don't want her to, if you could send me a headshot of you, I would like to spotlight each of you on our district webpage just to thank you. And so if you wouldn't care either to have your picture taken or send us in one, just want to say thank you and let our whole community know and how much we appreciate each of you all.
Thank you
for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Also want to comment, February 25th through 27th is the KSBA Winter Conference. I would like to go ahead and have Miss Jenny Ellis register you all for that. If for some reason someone is not able to attend, there are other training dates throughout the year. Just let me know and I won't get a room for you and won't register.
Miss Carrie,
Yes.
I won't be able to attend. We're gonna be in Washington DC at that time on a
Okay.
congressional tour.
Okay.
So just go ahead and give you the heads up before I forget.
Okay, and you'll have other opportunities. There's a summer and a
Yes.
conference in December, so you'll be fine on your training times.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And you'll take care of hotels as well.
We'll take care of hotels and register you, and we'll send all of that confirmation information to your Rockcastle County Schools email, so you'll have everything you need. I think that's all that I have.
Ms. Kennedy, do we have any, board members has any comments? Miss Angie, do you have anything?
Did you say me?
Yes, I did. Did you have any?
Sorry, I didn't know it was an Anne. No, I'm just want to say that it's my pleasure to serve on this board. I love it. I feel honored to be able to do that. So, thank you and thank the community for letting me be on the school board.
We appreciate you, and we're thankful to have you.
I love it.
Miss Anna, do you have anything? Misty?
Looking forward to working with you all.
Welcome, we're
We'd
glad
like to
you're
welcome
here.
you, yes. Yes, I was.
Yes, I'm excited for Matt. Sorry, I forgot you, Matt.
Yeah, I wanted to welcome you again, and, if it's okay, I'd like to get your cell phone number, just
Sure.
so that we can have that communication.
I'm gonna bet it's that
We're in a
one in
group
that
text.
group text
It's
that I didn't have a name
It
you
is.
don't know.
Well, I didn't know if they had added you yet, because you
308,
hadn't been sworn in yet, so I didn't know, so, okay, yeah. Okay, well, wonderful.
And I managed through Jenny Ellis to figure out what all your all's were.
And that you've got a wealth of knowledge on this board. Miss Angie and Miss Anna have served for many, many years, and I know we'll be happy to help in any way that they can, and Miss Misty as well. So don't hesitate to reach out to them.
Absolutely.
The only other thing I had, and then, I thought that maybe, I request this every year, before we start working on the salary schedule, I think it'd be really great if we had a work session so that we could, discuss that. I have a few things that I've discussed with you a little bit, just concerns, and would like to have maybe more of your input on if we did make any changes or anything, or, just something for discussion. So if we could schedule that at some time,
Would you prefer to do a work session prior to our board meeting? Like to come a little bit early, or do you have a preference?
I can do whatever. It's left up to the others, but, I just think maybe before we start
We've got a lot of work to do in that area for February and March, so we need to do that to soon. So I'll reach out to you all and see some dates and see what will work.
And besides that, that's all I have. Mr. Repper, thank you for all, I didn't say, I don't want you to think I wasn't approving that calendar. I'm glad we got a spring break in there, okay?
These feelings are done hurt.
Yeah, I've already.
Been over there trying to.
I mean, it really
Brought
is,
us
you're
some
all,
cookies,
you're all.
right?
it
Yeah,
really
maybe
is-
if we had cookies, we would feel.
Yeah, it is, your all's decision, of course, as always, and we will.
I do appreciate all of you, Brandon, of course. You're the new gal on the block. But thank you all so much, and with that being said, need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Miss Angie, thank you.